This coming up podcast is with Nickolas from Purpose Pipe. He's in Norway. I'm very excited about this podcast. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. There's a lot of meat in there to dive in, or if you're plant-based, there's a lot of vegetation in there to dive into, like David Bellamy would. All the lovely moss. Enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. Take care. As you can see, I'm actually in my I'm in my house. The studio I used to use didn't come with me when I moved, and I've recently moved, and so I'm currently working out of my house, but that'll all change soon enough. Let's put everything on. Okay,
that's cozy. Getting the home vibe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And my bass guitar is just always in the video.
Tagging along. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my co-host.
Nice.
Okay. So is it Nickolas? Nickolas? How do you like? Yeah, Nickolas.
Yeah, like everyone abroad call me Nick to make it simple, but it's pronounced Nickolas in my accent, you can say, in my language.
Sure.
But Nickolas is fine. And if you want to kind of a backstory, gladly I made like a webinar recording, so I have it fresh in my memory.
Cool, do it.
Because this is like typical. It's not the typical conversation I have where I go into my backstory. So I just go back to kind of the presentation I think you already watched, and that is that I went from starting my own company, focusing on pain relief, and we quickly kind of adapted new technologies to. I would say it was more for the X factor, like getting like almost edge or advantage over competitors. But we quickly found out that it had a lot of effects, but it was not kind of the effects we wanted, like permanently or like long lasting. It was very like in terms of maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, where people had experienced a lot of back pain, and they noticed a lot of changes from heat and cold and the stuff we used, like REMS technology, like it was different thing that worked, but not permanently. So I was just quickly adopting all kind of teachings and ended up with a guy called Joe E. Sarno. He was like he was doing medicine, was a professor of medicine, and he linked up the connection between mind and body. And he has a book that called Healing Back Pain, and that was kind of my first Bible to like, okay, it's not maybe as I wanted to find kind of the perfect technology that will solve all my problems. Maybe it was some baggage that the clients was bringing in as well. So that was when we attached a little more holistic approach to our clinics, and it was basically my just interest and intuition that was driving the whole thing, but it was not as easy to promote, both for legal reasons. I don't know about UK, but in Norway you're going to be really, really careful to promise anything. So when you come into a space where we have doctors on the other side of the road, we're going to be really, really careful. So we had to kind of promote ourselves as just a pleasurable massage and not so much about the outcome and the result. And that was a shame, because that was the only thing I was interested in. I was 100% solely focused on how could I treat the payment and how could I treat it as fast and seemingly without kind of putting a lot of appointments in there. Because I learned quickly that people were willing to pay to remove their pain. They didn't matter if it was 20 treatments or one. So at that point, I was thinking that maybe I could just raise my prices and raise my effect, and people would be happy on both sides. But it was really hard to push kind of the mental aspect and kind of work on their intellect, because now we crossed or bridged over in another market that was more like therapeutics and psychology and all that stuff. And we were more in if you had to label us, we were more in the bucket of like a beauty clinic. Like that was how we had to promote ourselves, because of the reason I mentioned. So at that point, I kind of just accepted that I had to do some changes. And around that time was when I first got my yeah, I don't know how you would label it, but I got blind, and people could kind of look back in time and say it was an awakening of some sort.
So you
Uh,
got blind.
yeah, I got blind for 1 hour to tremendous stress, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was yeah, like I said, people would say it's awakening. At that time, I was just labeling it as I was fucking stressed. I was
Yeah.
I was so stressed in terms of when I reflect back on it and kind of tune into it and try to look at the energy behind it, what I found out, it was more of a tug of war
Hmm.
with my intellect trying to control and pushing kind of my restriction on everything, and my intuition that wanted me to lead me in a whole new direction. And this tug of war is make me kind of miserable, because I was
Hmm.
trying to fight the forces, and I had a lot of help from the universe, but I was not willing to look at it. And I look at that blindness situations as something that it just had to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
There's an idea, isn't there, that you can think that what is going on. You think you keep working and working and trying to fulfill all of your inner desires, and the idea of you throw enough shit at the wall and some of it will stick, and you work hard and you work hard, and but there's always this like little voice inside of you that's going like, go that way, and you're like, no, 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 that way isn't going to get me that way. I've seen so many
Yeah.
other people going that way. I'm going to go that way. And there's little voices
Yeah.
going, no, 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 it's that way. And you don't listen. And then all of a sudden you go blind.
Exactly. So listen to that voice, people.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you don't have to take it to the extreme, because the doctors was telling me that they have never seen such a young, healthy guy experience that. So it was more like they were putting extreme athletes and musicians and people who have a lot of pressure on them, and maybe a lot of fears to deal with, that they were more in a avoiding factor,
Hmm.
more kind of a denial factor. So I'm pretty convinced that it was that tug of war with my intuition trying to lead me somewhere, and I was in completely denial. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that one lead to another situation, because after that experience, um, I quickly respected my intuition much more, and I was more interested in kind of delaying my intellect and kind of push it outwards. So yeah, a lot of different books, people. I could recommend. One is Wim Hof in terms of cold bath and breathing exercise to kind of pause your mind.
Hmm.
Um, and that's quickly what started my new journey, which is basically helping people with tools and techniques to um, bring their intuition more in the front seat
Hmm.
and their intellect more in the back seat. So it's
Hmm.
taking almost a switcheroo there,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like you mentioned, the feeling everyone has that, yeah, I'm going there and that's what I'm going to make me happy. And that's my needs, obvious, because I want them. But we don't question that it's actually like a collective ego that is controlling us on almost all levels.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's the path, like the quickest route, and then there's the one that our intellect thinks is, because it's that. But this makes more sense. It makes more sense to go from here to here to here to here. Like you can plan out each part of the process. Whereas when you just follow your intuition and you follow that lead, sometimes it seems like utter madness. Well, why would I roll down this really, really big hill and land in a massive like puddle of mud? Well, why would I do that? Get myself all caked, and that looks like it's going to be painful and horrible and uncomfortable. But actually, it got you to where you needed to be a hell of a lot quicker than it did going around up the trees through the. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's interesting.
100%.
It's interesting that you bring up intuition, because this was going to be. This is something that I worked on quite recently in myself, is trying to raise that voice of intuition,
Mm.
and I did the same thing that everybody else does. It's you read all the books, watch all the TED talks, it literally just do the search, like, how do I raise the voice of intuition? By not
Yeah.
doing that, basically. Be quiet, just stop, just so yeah. What did you do? You obviously you got interested in the Wim Hof techniques, which I'm going to assume allowed you to quieten the monkey brain, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And that was
So
it.
yeah, it was not it, but it gave me like a seed for how pleasurable it is to be without the ego, even though a second, 2 seconds. So it gives you kind of the first hit that the only need you really need is to be without needs.
Mm,
That's kind of how I assume it, like not assume it, but conclude it. It's
yeah,
like the first feeling you feel that, oh, I can actually be pretty fulfilled without ticking off the to-do list and kind of um, kind of obey to the ego mind.
yeah,
Because basically right now it's like ego mind stands there with a pot of gold and say that I will give you a small piece every time you check off something that should make you happy.
yeah,
So when you have your new apartment or new car or your girlfriend or whatever kind of achievement you think will make you happy, you get like a small piece of gold. And I was just I really had this faith within me that it was possible to get the whole bag without kind of obeying to that intellect. Because in my business, I had achievements that should make me much more happy.
mm,
So we had a lot of clinics and we were doing good business in the eyes of other people. But within me, I was feeling pretty miserable and borderline of depression.
yeah,
So I don't think people have to kind of get a lot of money to learn that lesson. But obviously, when you try to learn people that, if they have limitations around money, they will almost trigger them. So
mm,
I try to use any kind of examples, like close your eyes and be honest with yourself, like authentic. How fulfilled are you? Because
mm,
if you close your eyes and you're coming from a place of like that, I could be more happy. Um, that's enough. Then you have the starting point. And if you want to use techniques like Wim Hof to, yeah, be in a cold bath for 10 minutes just to feel how it is to have no thoughts, or you want to meditate, or you want to just use whatever triggers you to kind of pause your mind, that's just the first step. It's so much more exciting stuff after that. And that is very much what I want to normalize,
mm,
because it is like a either or. When we go online, it's like it's the people who meditate and that talk so much more about being still and appreciate the presence. And then you have the people that is kind of psychic and getting messages from the universe and
mm,
um, yeah, like the mediums, and you have all those seeing angels, and it's like a wide spectrum.
mm,
And I just want it all, and I want to give people the kind of the awareness that you can have it all. You don't
mm,
have to kind of buy into one little slice of it. So yeah, that's
yeah.
what makes me excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, so you found you did the Wim Hof techniques, and that kind of began your journey. You're listening to the stillness, experiencing the stillness, and then things grew from there. You started becoming aware of more vastness, aware of more, um, like another voice, perhaps your intuition.
Yep.
When do you feel like you first realized, oh, okay, I'm being guided here? When do you feel like that happened?
Um, the first kind of big aha I got was when I started to be honest with myself how much in ego I was.
Mm,
Because in the start, it's easy to um, yeah, get a sense of what spirituality is, and you kind of create your higher self within your ego.
mm,
And I was doing that for many years. Like I could close my eyes, I could feel that I talked to my intuition. But the first aha was when I found out that I talked to my ego all along. And I was pretty much just taking myself off for a little detour and some side quest, but I wasn't really taking responsibility of the attachment I had to my identity.
mm,
So when I was trying to be still, it was more the ego that was pretty much giving me a couple of minutes, but it was still the ego that was in the control.
yeah.
So my biggest shift was to really take responsibility in every moment of what kind of energy I was sending out, and also started to get more aware of what I was pulling in. So I was cutting out kind of negative news, negative people, a lot of substances. I was starting to actually take real charge of how I was working, almost like an engine. So I was learning different techniques from Reiki and different kind of simple techniques to control energy. But that was not the big aha. If you want kind of the breakthrough, it was like that. I'm really responsible in every second. And I could choose mind or heart. Like you always choose ego or love, or that you are awake and aware, or you're not, or you're mindful or not. It's always like that choice, and it's in every second. And the identity will make you go at least a couple thousand laps before you can let that in and really live it and mean it and feel it. But you can do it in small increments. So you could be triggered and you could catch yourself and say, oh, I forgot, I'm not the identity. I was pretty much living that identity in the car because it was an idiot in front of me.
Yeah.
And that is that could be one increment. So if you have a couple hundred of that, you're starting to kind of maybe create a little space between you and the identity. And that's where I feel that it's maybe not enough focus on that. The identity is so much more than a lot of books give the impression of. So
it's interesting because I was having this conversation with a friend only yesterday about like discernment and hearing. So you mentioned the news, and at one point I become aware that that there was a part of me that was hearing something on the news in passing. I don't watch the news. It's a terrible idea. I was hearing something in the news, and I was getting this sort of like ding, 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 ding. Question that. Just question that. And that wasn't something that came necessarily naturally in the beginning. It was something that I had to say, is everything I'm being presented with true? If I'm creating everything, am I creating this? Why am I creating this? If I'm not creating everything, if everybody is creating everything, then there's a collective of creation. So therefore, some things can exist. There can be a world outside of me that is already on, it's motoring along because it's already been set in place by thousands and thousands of years of ancestry who have also been creating their stuff collectively, So the hearing something on the news, I started questioning, is this true? Is this just part of a narrative? And the more I did that, the more it was like my ear just took over and went, I've got this. You worry about other things, or not worry, don't worry about anything, but you think about other things, and I'm going to just be the ear. I'll hear it, I'll decide, and I'll send you a little message to make sure it doesn't go into your subconscious, because that's the thing, isn't it? We hear stuff all the time and it gets into our subconscious and we don't know it's there, right? That's the sub element, is we don't know what's in there. So by making all of these things conscious, by allowing, by training this tool, right? Having this ear, you're able to, like you said, you're just training each. What I'm trying to say is like a measuring tool, like an implement, like you would look into a microscope to see something, to see what it really is or what it really seems to be. So very, very interesting that we actually have these tools within us already, and they're ready to take up the bat once we just say, we just got to call them a few times, right? We just call in a few times and say, hey, come on.
It's so funny. Like the analogy is great because you're training, if you want to call it the air, eye, or just a feeling or knowing, it's like a muscle. And like you said, it's already there. It's available for everyone, but many people feel that they need permission. I just need another book. I need to little more confidence. I'm a little too afraid. I need to be a little more comfortable with the unknown before I kind of go within. But it's always there, and it's always maybe different souls have different pushing towards it, but it's accessible for everyone because you wouldn't be here in the world if you couldn't access it, because it's the purpose of being here. So if you look at people reincarnating millions, if not hundreds of millions of times.
Yeah.
So if we are here to kind of understand that we are not the ego, but that's how we start out, it's not like some people are preferred like VIP. It's just that some people have a more developed soul, if you want to use that label and word, and they will maybe even choose harder situations for themselves.
Yeah.
And that is also a great way to look at the world, because when I read about your podcast, I was like, okay, I'm going with this guy, because the way you label your podcast was pretty much to dwell into the I, and how we see ourselves is how we see the world. That's something I live by, and I love kind of that sentence, because it's everything.
Yeah.
Because some people could look at terrible things in the world and they could see unconditional love energy behind it. But if you are so kind of locked into the physical representation, you're pretty much walking inside a cave and you have no clue that it's a whole world outside.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to sort of think about it in terms of a camera lens, zooming in and zooming out, and you can sit inside let's call it the dream, the small r reality, and you can be really, really zoomed in to that. And sometimes you need to be, sometimes you want to be, there are experiences, there are physical experiences that are just wonderful. And there's a reason for having this body and having this mind. And if you can get the two to work in conjunction with each other, and then get those two to work in conjunction with what your soul desires, or your higher self, or whatever, you're like a finely tuned engine, like you said. But having that, there are moments when you can be zoomed right in, and then there's a lot of time when you're going to be better off zoomed right out, so you can really see just a broader image. Not like there's a bigger picture, which I don't think any of us know what the bigger picture is. I think we can all kind of like say that, yeah, God, oversoul, source, whatever, has this desire to experience. I think a lot of us, when you start down this path, you start to realize that ultimately it's just about having an experience.
Yeah.
It's how much you invest in each of those individual experiences, how much you allow them to then taint who you are, the identity that you've created about who you are. And if you can go on.
No, it's just agreeing, because the elevated perspective, or the big picture, is pretty much what will keep you grounded, because it's easy to fall into the intellect, and the way to kind of drag you right back is just to zoom out, basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will label any kind of experience that is not accepted or labeled normal by the identity, they will label it as paranormal, like a paranormal experience. But when I started to lose my identity, all kind of crazy things happened, and I was not judging it. So I had like my grandfather was had cancer, and when he was deceased, he was kind of reaching out to me, and that will freak this living stuff out of me if I was in my old kind of identity box, and I was kind of limiting myself. But at that point, I was inviting that kind of stuff. So I agree with you that I don't know if people have kind of all the answers, but the answers that we are here to kind of rediscover ourselves and go from mind to heart, and basically repeat that until the whole collective is reaching kind of a unity and a oneness. That is something I live by, and that's something that's opinion alert, but that's something I 100% is living and know. But like all the answers behind that and stuff, that is, I think it's something that we go back in our intellect. If we kind of say, I need all the answers, I need the answers behind the answer, that could be a trap as well, because It's more to be in this flow and do what we can to kind of change the world by changing ourselves. And that's pretty much all the answers I need to have a fantastic life.
Yeah, for sure. So with your work, because ultimately I feel like this is what we're all doing, as you said, My wife made me a beautiful card for my birthday this year, and she's an artist, so it's it's wonderful
Nice.
colours, and in the sort of colours, I'm gonna have to have it and like put it behind me or something. But in the colours, it's not until you look, it's not until you zoom in that you see it just says we're all just walking each other home, which I believe is a Ramdas
Nice.
quote, and but it was just one of those moments that because I'm a great believer of I will talk to anybody who has because we all have a story, and anyone who has reached a point such as yourself and hopefully such as myself um, has had that moment when they realize that actually their life, their story is their gift to the next
Mm.
person. You know, I could tell you my
Mm.
story, and in that there may be a moment when you go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and the more of us tap into that and share that, the more we can increase this this as you said, the raising of humanity, the it's like the flipping over. You know, if you imagine like every coin is a
Yeah.
coin, but it has two sides, and one side is very buried deep in the dream, and the other side is recognizing the dream for what it is. Um, and
Yeah.
I like to see it as running around flipping these coins, and you know,
Yeah, like flipping the switch
yeah,
on
exactly.
yeah, that's actually how it feels for most people. So that's um yeah, that's something I'm sure you got intuitively because that's a very similar sentence I heard from very many people.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the work that you're now doing, you're working very much with helping people um, to see maybe what's in your subconscious, to remove any blockages, limitations that are stopping you from flicking the switch or from allowing the switch to be flicked, or do you feel like you work a little bit more with because there's that stuff within the dream, there's the spirituality within a dream where it talks about things like law of attraction and all that sort of thing where it's like how do I get the thing that I desire? Well, would follow this procedure, follow these
Yeah.
techniques, 3 steps to mastery, and all this sort of thing, right? I feel like it's
Yeah.
simpler than that, and I feel like what you're doing is kind of you're saying in a way. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you feel about the subconscious. What is, um, yeah, what do you feel like you're doing when you offer
Yeah.
this service?
So trying to simplify the whole thing is that the intellect wants very specific steps. So when you see marketers are promoting their stuff, they kind of have to say 3 steps to whatever you want, or
Yeah,
else nobody will listen.
yeah,
But that's kind of the bad part about it. But that's how marketing works. You kind of have to shout off the rooftop, and someone has to kind of look up and want to hear more. And basically, the only way to penetrate the intellect is to talk directly to what the intellect wants. And
yeah,
that's kind of the challenge with doing any spiritual work, that we also have to promote ourselves. And if I will shout from the rooftop that take more responsibility for how you see yourself, nobody will
yeah.
ever come to me, you know?
Who's that
So
nutter on the roof?
yeah, it's more like meditation. We are 8 billion people. I'm sure that half of the world will love to meditate, but
Mm,
nobody can even take a minute out of the day because it's not appealing to the intellect. So when you have the social media and the Netflix and the work and the kids and the commute, it's like you can't even take 1 minute in meditation. So that's kind of the challenge with what I do. What I do is kind of to simplify how to almost like getting out of your intellect and into your intuition is kind of the simplest way to explain it. But
yeah,
it also to explain to the intellect that it's only want like the how and the what, and it will always kind of run in circles if it will not see that willpower and kind of habits and everything that seemingly should work, like NLP and all that stuff, to tapping into the subconscious.
yeah,
It doesn't work for the simple reason that the intuition only care about how you feel. So you could add almost kind of layers and bells and whistles onto the picture, but if you're not focusing on the only thing that intuition really wants from you, and that is to take ownership of how you feel in every moment, you will basically just repeating the same year after and after. And I have talked to multiple people that I was speaking to last year they haven't moved at all, but they have read 50 new books.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is to maybe stop the consuming of knowledge and kind of be more practical in a sense. So if people are so locked in their intellect and so locked in like I'm the human belief that they are not getting intuitive messages like direct messages, I try to help them to look at the constant message. And the constant message everyone has with the universe, regardless if you can hear and see visuals and anything, is that you always know in every moment how you feel. And that's basically where I start. For people who have less limitations, we work on understanding and strengthen the message they already got. So it's very much to find that inner compass and help them develop and trust it. And tapping into how you feel is basically the starting point for everyone. But I also try to limit how the intellect will jump in, because once you start peeking into that curtain, the intellect will find a million different ways to fill up your day, so you don't find any time to kind of keep going there. So it's more about framework and a protection almost, to allow people to explore more, to give them more permission, and to remove, like you said, limiting beliefs is number one reason how our intellect is capturing us, by saying, like, pretty much saying that if you believe this, I will create a million different reasons for you to back it up. So you will act on it like it's factual. So if you have traumas young and you have created a belief that you're less worth than anyone else, your mind will kind of work 24/7 for you to prove that it's true. And that's how you see the world, and that's how you see everything you go into. So for some people, we will only work on limiting beliefs, maybe the first 1 to 3 sessions, and then the remaining sessions is only about kind of strengthening that communication.
Interesting. It made me think of when you were sort of describing that. It made me think of the is it the 9-headed monster that Hercules fights? Cuts one of the heads off, and like I don't know, another one grows, and it just keeps on going and going, and the more he fights it, the bigger it gets, and then he has this moment of realization where he sort of it just chooses to, I don't know exactly what happens. He chooses to love it or something. Just realizes he's not gonna win this, and in that moment, it's like this light shines upon this monster, and it starts getting smaller, and it gets smaller and smaller. The more light and the more he loves it, the smaller it gets, until he can hold it just in the palm of his hand, and it's like it becomes this really, really cute thing that actually offers a lot of benefit, in the sense. So now let's take the analogy over to having these emotions. So fear, for instance, fear like of doubt. I'm not good enough. Well, doubt is really, really powerful, in the sense that that thought may pop up, and I'm not good enough. And then you can ask why. Why am I not good enough? Well, I'm not good enough because if this happens, I don't know what I'm going to do about it. Okay, so let's assume that did happen. What would you do about it?
Yep.
Give the intellect a job. What would I do about this? Oh, well, I could do this. Right. Okay, fair enough. So there we go. Then we've had the moment of doubt, and then we've asked the question why, and we've come up with a thing that we could do to solve that. So the moment you've got that, it's almost like you pair those two things and you pop them to the side, and you carry on with the thing it is that you want to do. Knowing you've got the answer to that next, that potential problem, and you don't have to think about it anymore, because you've already figured out what you would do in that scenario. And quite often, the moment you stop thinking about what would I do in that scenario, what if that scenario, the moment you stop thinking, it disappears anyway, and there is no that scenario never comes up, because it's not a problem.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. But people still want it simpler than that, because if you tell people that, but it's true. If you tell people that just question your kind of scarcity mindset, people are willing to do it once and they don't continue doing it. So what I try to do is I just bundle everything. Like if we can solve one belief, you can pretty much grab 10 others in the same session, because it's kind of created on top of it. And one thing I do to go to the bottom is just to feel that if you have any kind of negative feelings, you mentioned kind of doubt. You could put doubt, you could put scarcity, you could put fear, negativity, victim mode, self-hate, self-doubt, uncertainty. You could put everything in that kind of category, and you can just remind yourself that it's the identity, it's not you. So when you kind of feel like shit and you switch to your higher self, that is never feeling any kind of negative emotions, because it is what's kind of created and is behind the universe, you could pretty much understand that the ego is there as a purpose. The ego is there as almost like your Zen master. And the reason why you need to feel like shit is that if you didn't do it, you wouldn't move. You wouldn't look for a solution if you didn't feel bad. So if we was just reincarnate in this world and we feel amazing, we will just sit on the grass. Nobody will work, nobody will do anything, and there will be no reason to be here. So I try to help people to kind of integrate their ego instead of, by the way, I love that Disney analogy. It was the best, because it's so true in terms of, I often use onion as an analogy, that as long as you have a belief, you will always kind of get new things to peel off, and you can peel forever, because the intellect is working faster than you can peel. So it's like it will be like an onion that is impossible to peel, basically. But the three-headed monster as well, you cut the head and it's pop up. I love those kind of analogies because it's so accurate. And that's why it's very motivating for people, even though they come from a place of intellect, they get very motivated that they don't have to, number one, fight the ego. Number one, they don't have to do so much introspection in the start. They can just label it as negative, and we just bundle up the whole skeletons in the closets. We don't have to get specific, because it's first when they associate themselves with their awareness, then we can kind of look at deeper stuff, because now they have the higher self backing them, and they have the unconditional love of energy and the vibration to back them to really clear that stuff. Because to take a person that is 100% in their intellect down in their subconscious and look at stuff they don't want to look at, that will create like 50-headed monsters, because it will kind of, you're kind of announcing before you go there to the intellect that we are here to kill you. But if you're coming in with the loving energy, it's more like, I can use an analogy when I worked with the pain relief clinics, that people who had very sore muscles, we had a different way of approaching it. So we were not like using hard elbows and typical machines that was beating up the muscles, because it has to kind of get massaged into the scenes, and we had to give it a little more space to heal itself. And the same with the ego. We have to kind of almost like give your ego a hug. Is the easiest way to make it run away, because the ego don't like love or good energies. Ego love to be like, the whole world hate me, I'm pretty much screwed, I have it harder than anyone else. And if you feel that presence of limited energy is there and you give it a hug, it's like, it's out of there, because it don't like that type of energy. So when you bridge that, you could see yourself more as the pipe that is including negative and positive energy, but you have the power and the responsibility to flip that switch as many times you want. And the more you switch it, the more you train that muscle. And that is why my whole brand is called Purpose Pipe, because once you kind of fill your pipe with loving energy, you can access your life purpose. But as long as like it's negativity there, you will always kind of see, I'm almost there, I'm not ready. So that's pretty much my whole brand, is going back to helping people to clear their pipe of baggage and limitations.
Love that. I wasn't going to ask that, but that's definitely something that was somewhere. It's like, how does where does that? I totally didn't understand it. I didn't know whether it was some like I have a blog page which is powered by Wix. I was like, is Nickolas is your thing like powered by Purpose Pipe? What's Purpose Pipe? But that makes loads of sense. That's I often think of it as a stick, and the stick has two ends. It's still a stick. Like the stick is a stick. There's the two ends, one's got poo on and one hasn't.
I love it. Have you ever seen like a one-sided stick?
No, it doesn't exist. Like, at what point would the stick stop being like I don't know. It's just, yeah, that doesn't, it's still a stick no matter how big it is. Um,
Yeah.
so, so you've kind of probably already answered, but when you started diving into um, yourself and with a capital S and raising that intuition, did you did you feel something in your heart like an activation? Did you get a physical sensation when when you have moments where you have to zoom in, because you must have to have conversations with people, or like you said about driving, you're driving along and things happen. There are times when you have to be invested in the dream, in the small R reality. Do you
Yeah.
do you experience any kind of like physical? So I'll give you an example. For me, for instance, I have a wife and two children, and there are
Yep.
times when the two children will pull me in to a scenario
Yeah.
where I have to go, and I have to,
Mm.
and in that moment, I take that deep breath, and I kind of, it's almost like I remind myself. It's like I say to myself, like, you're held, brother. It's fine, everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's almost like I get this sensation, um, not in my physical heart, but in that area, in that space, like the chakra heart space.
Mm.
It's like, and it feels like a sort of just a gentle opening that just allows the moment in, doesn't cling to the moment as defining me, but it just allows that moment in, and then I'm able to deal with the situation in a much more loving way. It's not always the case. There are definitely times when I forget to do that, and I'm like, oh, there's poo everywhere. Why is it in
Yeah.
your hands? Why are you?
Escalating quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you experience anything like that? Do you have anything that kind of triggers you in that way where you have to um,
Yeah. I feel like it's going into the conversation of almost comparison in terms of what should it be or how is other experience. Like the thing I'm controlling is very much my intent.
mm,
So if situations doesn't go my way, like yesterday we was walking in my town and someone had like a microphone and was saying like racial stuff,
oh no.
and just to put it on the edge, because um, it's like immigration policy in our country is like very strong, but some people means that like, yeah, people have all their opinions basically.
Mm,
So when I look at the world, I try to look at the loving energy behind anything, but that is kind of the first feeling I ever had in maybe a year where I felt a little triggered.
mm,
But it was not like, I have learned to not beat myself over it. When I started to kind of let go of my attachment to things, I got less and less triggered.
mm.
But still, when I got triggered, I was beating myself over the fact that I got triggered. So
Yeah.
it's like a spiral there.
Yeah.
But at this point, I haven't really been aggressive, even though a lot of stuff had happened and stressful situations that should trigger me.
Mm,
So it's kind of a cue or like a feedback that at least you have let go of a lot of attachments.
yeah.
But still, when I hear those racist tropes, it was like I had to go really, really deep within myself.
Mm,
But I have, to answer your question, I have a lot of tools I'm using in terms of keeping my intent. So let's say you stand there with a poo diaper in your hand and life is chaotic. It's like, it's thing you could do. And if you have created your own way of looking at the chakras, you just use that if that works, because people
mm,
use different things based on the knowledge and their experience. So the chakra stuff is a good way to put the whole bag of concepts and kind of put it somewhere.
mm.
But it's not like if people was learning different analogies, they will use different words and different sensations. But
Sure.
what I use is pretty much my breathing when I'm in situations where I feel that my intellect is kind of taking over a little bit.
Mm,
I feel like I'm breathing in terms of having this light light energy in my stomach that is kind of much spreading to my whole body. And I usually do it by creating little resistance in my, I can't translate on the spot, but behind the nose you have like a way you can stop the flow of air.
Sure.
So I'm trying to take a deep breath in with my mouth, and when I exhale out of my nose, I try to hold it a little bit back, because it creates a vibration that, at least for me, I feel like I get energy in my stomach. And I just, with my intent, kind of spread that a little bit down the feet, a little bit up in my head, and I'm kind of collectively filled by this light energy. And that's what I do if I'm around a lot of people, because that's a problem for me. I don't think I'm an empath, but I'm really, really aware of energies. So if I'm surrounded with a lot of people, I need to kind of almost protect myself from the influence of, I could just pass a person who is stressed and he could jump onto me. So that is what I use. And with the diaper experience, it's like, I could see myself doing like a poo diaper and kind of working on the inside by doing the chores of the normal life on the outside. I don't see those crashing with each other. You can do both. And that's the best type of multitasking, because the multitasking with the physical, with 10 different tabs on your browser, is like just divided intellectual energy. But if you're multitasking with a poo diaper and working on your energy, that's something that could definitely work.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. It's almost like it just came to me. It's the analogy is it's escaped me in the moment. But quite simply, there are so many moments where we force. You said, you were giving yourself more of a hard time for being triggered than actually the thing that triggered you. That was, and I think that this is what we do all the time. I have like so many moments. I've got to a point now. I have so many moments where I'm triggered, but in that moment, I catch it. So it's like, that's cool. I like being triggered because it highlights to me what my values are in the dream. It's like I have this drop down menu of values that I don't define myself by, because I can change any of those. I can see all of those values as being their judgments on a situation. I don't have these judgments that define me. These are just things that I've kind of like picked up along the way. So I just, in that moment, I was just wondering, this is exactly what we all do, right? We have interactions, we have experiences with other people. We quite often we offend people, because we naturally do, because people naturally have their own values, and I feel like, in a way, it's almost like this small R reality is kind of the purpose of that, is to, I'm going to trigger you, you're going to trigger me, and in that triggering, we can recognize that there's something in that we can learn from, and we need to keep having these things happen so that we can continue to learn. Now, that learning is just, it's not necessarily for any greater, or maybe it is. I'm having a lot of thoughts going on while I'm speaking, and I'm like, slow down. I'm trying to keep up. So it's almost like, so we're having these lessons, these small lessons, on a moment to moment basis, which changes everything on a moment. So if you imagine like the timelines, your camera just went really blurry. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Maybe a fly flew past, and oh, there you go, you're back. So if you imagine like all the different timelines, or the one timeline, and the moment you interact with someone, the moment you're triggered and you respond, or you learn a new response, the timeline shifts ever so slightly. And I'm not getting into the many worlds and many timelines concept, but just the simple idea of you jump from one to another as you learn, and it's all a progression. It's all a progression. Do you feel in a
Yeah,
way?
we are basically here from.
Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, it was some delay on Zoom. I was just saying that that's the whole purpose of being here, to learn from each other. So the triggering stuff, if we were able to see energies just as during our upbringing, and let's say that I was really angry at you and I was talking to you and it comes out like red energies out of my eyes and mouth, we will be much more limited in how we could hurt each other. But we don't see that energy for a reason, because just out of the box, it wants us to trust our intuition and feel it within ourselves. So that's why we don't see that stuff. But if we were aware of how negative energy impact each other, and how I could basically sit in Norway and think really negative about you, and you could feel it in terms of being overwhelmed or tired and stuff like that. If our intellect was aware of how much we could hurt each other, like on psychology level, it will be like the next breakthrough in psychology, but we can't really prove it with scientific research, and that's why we don't talk so much about it. But in terms of how we are learning from each other, it's pretty much that we are triggering each other. That's 100% true. And how we inspire each other is pretty much to go in front of an example, and people have to admire that people are so authentic and people are willing to go against their intellect. And that's pretty much what you're talking about by flipping the switch. Like, one thing is to just go around and tell people what to do. But another thing is that you just start that podcast and you do it regardless of what you're getting out of it, because you just have to follow that excitement. But you can't really put your finger it. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. It doesn't mean that it's some purpose behind it. So the triggering stuff is like, eventually you have to go back to what I said about responsibility, that if you catch yourself, let's say, getting drunk, and when I was hangover, I was really in self-loathing. I was really hard with myself, like, why did I do that? Like, I'm so stupid and all that stuff. And I had to do it maybe 50 times before I was like, enough is enough. And it's the same with intellect. You have to kind of beat yourself up, like in terms of how you let the intellect take control of you, until one day you say, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for it. And the way you do that is to be really aware of how you let negative impact you. Because if you're watching the news and you start the day by filling your head up with COVID fear and stuff like that, you're going to have a really hard time to not be triggered by everything. So that's number one, like, control what you put in your head and take responsibility for it. Because if you're from the victim mind that, I stopped the news, but I'm still depressed, it's like, it's not enough. If you're depressed, you have to stick with it until you're not depressed. And you can solve all your problems by detaching from your identity. And that's kind of the exciting thing and the hard thing, because it's really, really hard to go in this world and sell a pill that solves everything. People will instantly label you as spam. So you have to kind of always work with the intellect, like the skeptical mind and the doubts of the intellect, and you have to almost kind of trick it in behind the eyes of the 10-headed monster. That if you could just get a glimpse of it and you could just start this seed, it's almost like your job is done. You have flipped the switch, you can go on to the next one. Because once that is no way back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I read, just like anybody else on this path, read so many books, and for a while I was trying like auto-suggestion and like self-hypnosis, and you mentioned this earlier. Like those things worked to a sort of lesser or greater degree. There was a moment where I had this sort of auto-suggestion where I'd lay in bed at night and I would repeat over and over again, I'm a being, I'm a determined, I am determined, I am like a being of like intense energy. I can do anything, like all of these, like really self-empowering kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and that worked initially, and then I stopped doing it. And
Yeah.
whether I plateaued after, because I definitely felt a boost in myself, you know, um, but then it kind of plateaued. It got to a point where it no longer seemed to have an effect, because I'd stopped using the auto. So I started again. And when I started again, it didn't change. Nothing changed. It was as if
Mm.
the auto suggestion wasn't working anymore.
Mm.
Wondering why is this not working? So I went back to the books and started reading more and more books. And then once I reached a point of reading, and I was like, I've read all of this, I've read all this. There was nothing popping out. Nothing was saying. Nothing was screaming out to me. When like things you just resonate with,
Yeah.
that term, it kind of like it bugs me out sometimes. Does this resonate with you? It's like it gets used too much. But when you think about resonance from a physics standpoint, it really sort of has more, for me anyway. It has far more meaning. Anyway, there was nothing popping
Yeah.
out from the books, and then I stumbled across Neville Goddard. I'm not sure if you're familiar, and
Actually, no.
okay, so his whole thing is he was around like 30s, 40s, and his whole thing was about the feeling. And this is what you said earlier. It's all well and good to intellectually repeat words and have these mantras, but if you're not feeling, what what are you doing? Because your
Yeah.
intuition only knows the feeling, right? It only works in feeling. Um,
Yeah.
the moment I recognized that and realized that, the whole, oh well, if I do this, then I'll be happy. Well, what would happiness feel like? Sit in that. Oh, that's so all of a sudden I was getting up in the morning, I was choosing happiness as if it was a coat to put on,
Yeah.
walking about my day with that, having made that choice, my day was happy. Everything that unfolded
Mm.
from that point unfolded from a standpoint of happiness. The next day,
Wow.
I'd forget to put the coat on, go about my business, and it would just reset to my default.
Yeah.
So this is something that I wanted to sort of get into a little bit with you, is the default,
Sure.
the
Sure. Yeah.
self talk. Um, do you feel like we have a natural propensity to just doubt ourselves, to put ourselves down? Do you feel like that's something that society has had a hand in? Um, where Because when you look at children are just naturally happy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
it's not until they kind of start, it's not until we start saying you can't do that, you know that seems to be when they start going, and they get, more and more miserable because they're told they can't do something.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's a good question. I think people who listen are like, finally, I will give you some practical advice. Like, that's what everyone wants,
Mm,
because, like you said, you can't really meet anyone that hasn't dwelled into this kind of whole world or topic without trying at least 10 different things. At least
yeah.
some people are trying 100 different things. So it's not like it's a lack of things to try and things to implement and things to learn. But the reason why this stuff only works like a couple of times or just in limited amount of months in the year or like all different things is because it doesn't go all down to the identity. So if we look at vision boards or affirmation and stuff, it says that it's 1 to 10,000 ratio in terms of how you really feel about yourself on a belief level.
Mm,
So that's why NLP and all that stuff, they have the right focus in terms of tapping into the subconscious beliefs, but it's more about the identity that maybe I add to that picture. That if you look at your example with child, that in my eyes, they have a very pure pipe. They don't have so much restriction and limitations and intellect in them. And also they are operating on a different brainwave. So they are managing to have a very clear pipe and they could see imaginary friends, and they don't think of that as strange at all.
mm,
And if we look at grown-ups, they are so limited in their waking state but they are also in complete denial that they have, let's say you are 30, 40 years, they are in complete denial that they have accounted around 100,000 hours of sleep. And if you ask them, what do you do in your sleep? What did you do in those 100,000 hours? And they was like, I'm sleeping. What are you asking? It's like half their life, they are flying around and traveling to other dimensions. But when they wake up, they are completely in their box. And it's funny to look back on that, because now I'm more aware in my dreaming state. And I was like, oh my God, I was living like 1.1% of life in terms of going out of body and doing all kind of stuff that is so outside the intellect and so outside the typical box. So to answer your question is why those things are just working for a limited time, is that it takes a little time for your intellect to catch up what you're doing. And the intellect is just making you focus on other things. So you just forget it. And that could be in the physical of how much you implement it, or the intention level that you can even hear about some information, but your ego mind has decided that you should really think about your pension. You should really think about your work right now. So that's how the intellect is kind of taking away, and we don't even notice it. It goes back to the cave analogy that you don't even know that it's a world outside there.
Yeah.
So the dreaming state is a good reminder for people that you already are limitless every night, half your life almost. But we just wake up and we are denial the whole thing. And the real answer is that we don't change on like the identity level before we take charge of the beliefs like I'm not good enough, and I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I'm not like I'm insignificant, I don't have the capability, and all those kind of root things that we think we have cleared. Like I have clients that like, okay, I cleared this now, what now? And I'm telling them that if you're still depressed, you haven't cleared it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's like a living testament. So if your identity has tricked you to think you have cleared it, that's fine. But let's clear it for real. Like stop this denial stuff, because that's what makes you depressed. That's what makes you feel like you're not enough and you're not there. You can appreciate what you have. You have to have that vision board items before you can allow yourself to be happy. And all that stuff is linked to how do you really see yourself. And if you see yourself like I'm limited and Nico is so lucky because he can do awesome stuff, you will always be kind of suffering, because you will be more attached to the identity than your higher self, true self. Label it as you want. It's pretty much your essence. And all those kind of labels and names, we all talk about the same thing. But what I feel is lacking in all kind of books and courses out there is to be more upfront and raw and responsible for how we are kind of chaining ourselves to the identity. Because if we could cut those chains, it shouldn't be any problems. We're already there, but we just have to kind of let go of that baggage.
Yeah. One of the things that came up for me was as a question to ask, not necessarily yourself, but oneself. A question to ask oneself is, how aware are you of the excuses that you make? You know, when in any situation, why aren't you doing this? Why are you feeling this way? Why are you doing this? You know, like you said about drinking and having a hangover, like, why do you keep drinking? You know, well, drinking's fun at the time. Okay, fine. So why do you feel bad then the next day? Like, are you doing stupid things when you're drunk that make you feel bad? Or are you just being hard on yourself because when you're drunk, you're a little bit more you, or you're a little bit more outrageous than your identity of yourself wants to be, you know? So again, it's all just part of it. I just want to, I don't know how long you want to sort of go on for, but I'm conscious that we've sort of hit an hour. And I know that I know that some
25 minutes more, so it's good.
Okay, yeah. So it's I had an interest in. I just want to sort of talk you through this because I'm interested to hear your opinion on it. Recently, my personal business, which is actually not anything to do with what we do here. I have like the within the dream business, and all of a sudden, so I do the podcasts, I create music, and I do guided meditations for people,
Nice.
which is kind of it's kind of making its way into mentoring. And for the longest time, I had a problem with the idea of mentors. Not, I just didn't feel like there's something about, and I think it's just the word, there's something about like, I'm going to teach you or train you, or I'm more than you, And in
Yeah.
my experience, I have friends much like myself, and there are times when I go to them, I'm like, oh man, I'm in this place, and they're like, remember this place, and I go, oh yeah, well done, cheers. That was all I needed, was just that little reminder. But then
Yeah.
a week or two later, that person will come to me and go, oh, this just happened. And I'm like, remember this place? And they go, oh, yeah, well done. Thanks. And it's like, it just works backwards and forwards. It's not a case of like, I'm your mentor and that means I know more than you. It's a case of, I'm
Yeah.
just reminding you, just going to remind you that you are
Yeah.
enough already in yourself, Now, so I have this experience in my dream life, and all of a sudden, all my work that I had booked in for the year disappeared. All my customers just went, we no longer want to carry out this contract. We've run out of money. This has gone on hold. The buyer has pulled out. Like, all these different things just occurred, and all of a sudden, I was in a place where I've got no income, and I have never felt such bliss in all my life. I
Wow.
I had the option, I had that moment, that initial moment to go, shit, this is bad, and I
Yeah.
could have experienced the last week just being completely in turmoil, in dread. And in that moment, I was like, oh, this could be the best thing that's ever happened to me, because it
Yeah.
opened a window. All of a sudden, at the moment I made that choice of like, this is opening a window. I've had more bookings for podcasts than I've ever had.
Nice.
I've had people come and ask me for, again, mentorship. They
Wow.
want guided meditations. They want talks. They want to, have these conversations. They want to know more. It's almost like the universe went, so you're not following the path enough. Like, we need to
Yeah.
clear away some stuff, and
Yeah.
let's see how aware you really are of what's going on. Let's see how you react to this. Boom.
Yeah.
I was like, cool, call me out. Let's have a go. And it's
Wow.
just, yeah, it's absolutely. And having that experience and having things unfold the way they have over the last few days, I am I'm so in awe of this power that we all hold. We Power, it's possibly the wrong term, but I think you get what I mean. This
Sure.
We have this choice. This seemingly bad thing, this, as you say, poo diaper, doesn't need to
Yeah.
be, it doesn't need to be what it looks like on the surface. It can be an opportunity for something else, to clean something. And that's so, I've had
Yeah.
friends who have like had this desire to clear something away, and they put it off and they put it off and they put it off, and then the universe goes and makes it really, really like dirty, and now you have to clean it, and it
Yeah.
and then they go, oh, I just didn't, I knew this and I didn't do anything, and now, now look at it. I think that's
Yeah.
a truly magical thing, and that is something that I want to share. I want people to know that they have this
Nice.
choice and that they are held. I think
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks for sharing that, because it was almost like you answered your own question in terms of the mentorship.
hmm,
It's more of the being level or the intention level that is coming from, that you really want to help people before it's going to get like the lesson is going to be learned the hard way,
exactly.
because everyone in life has different levels of getting a helping hand until it turns out to like a big slap.
Yeah.
So the poo diaper is like, that's the lowest level.
Yeah.
That's a normal day for a father,
Yeah.
But the blind stuff and like losing your whole livelihood, that is kind of um, something that you choose. Like you said, is it a slap or is it like a really, really helping hand? And it depends on the perception, but I look at it as life is, for a soul, is like a blink of an eye. So we look at time like, oh my God, like I have 4 weeks without payment. Oh my God, it's like, what am I going to do? But for the big picture, that's like, it's not a big thing. Like it's not valid in that sense because there's no time to it. It's more like this soul has kind of follow his inner intuition and fire his inner compass. And now it looks like he's really starting to talk with the universe, like you have a dialogue. And just like you said it, like bring me more, like give me more, and the universe will reply to that, and you will get more. And if you still have that attitude that just speed it up, just increase the speed, is like you will have this dialogue. And one thing I could add on the mentorship, because it's kind of a recurring issue with a lot of people I talk with, is like the Messiah complex almost. Like, how can I teach people? But what we really do is that you, like you said, it's more like a reminder, but you're also giving people the support needed to maybe go deeper on stuff that they are in denial in themselves. And I look at that as maybe the most important service in the world. But still, people have this issue of attaining or attaching money to spiritual practices. And I have this feeling that it's two reasons. And number one is that it's very hard to put a dollar amount on it because it's not like physical at all. So the money stuff, the money is physical. But when I teach people that money is just energy, it helps people to think about that I'm just following my joy. And if we're going to really follow joy and label what's real and what's not, it's basically when you can support yourself by helping people and both sides wins.
Yeah.
So it's so many things we sell and do of services and products in the world where it's only one side that wins, and that's the business owner and the government.
Yeah.
And the clients are the losers, or the customers are the losers, or human nature are the loser. But doing mentorship is, I really, really hope that I and thousands of others can contribute to normalize it, because people are like, oh, you're charging money or a scam. Or you're going to teach me to be enlightened and you charge thousands of dollars for a scam artist. Yeah. It's like this attitude is pretty much why spiritual practices have a hard time make money and make a living from it. Because this is kind of a limiting belief held by spiritual people. It's not like you become interested in spiritual stuff and all your beliefs is gone. Like, spiritual people have their own limiting beliefs. So this is kind of one of the top one.
Yeah.
So people have to kind of look more into the energy behind money, and then those beliefs will kind of lose the grip. Because why shouldn't you help people if people come to you and say, I want help?
Yeah.
And in terms of the payment stuff, it's like, if they don't pay, they don't value it. Like, if you give people help for free, they won't value it. And that's an energy exchange. It has nothing to do with the monetary stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's something I want to add on that. And in terms of putting yourself in that situations without feeling that you're better than others, is more about the self-belief stuff, that I really have something of value to give. And I think you already know that, but still it's some part of you that like, do I have enough value to give? And I can confirm that you're more than ready. You could help people. That's enough proof. You don't have to kind of scrutinize more than that. You can help people. You should offer to help people.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. That was exactly what I was going to ask you next. So you dove straight into my mind and and answered it before I got the chance. Likewise, just talking to you, I know that you have so much to offer other people, and I see you with more and more clients, more and more people being helped, and I see you flicking the switch, or at least giving people the tools to flick the switch for themselves. And I wish you all the best on that. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I guess all that's left really is to just thank you for taking the time to have this conversation. Thank you for offering your service in the first place, because if it wasn't for you offering your service, I would never have come across your work, and we wouldn't have had this conversation. And I feel already, just in this short time, we've shared quite a lot of kind of, whether it be anecdotal or whether it be, procedure based, like there's a lot of information in this conversation that can be very beneficial for people. So thank you very much. That will go.
I could throw in like a thank you myself from my side, because doing this work is about receiving. It's like when you ask me to jump on a podcast, or people want to have a session, it's like I'm getting tremendous pleasure just from helping out, and I have enjoyed myself a lot in this conversation. And if I don't see you offering to help people within a couple of months, I will come and kick your ass.
Right, you're on. Thank you very much. Cheers, buddy.
Thank you. Have an awesome day. Bye.
You too. Take care. Wow, that was an incredible podcast with Nickolas. Just a real genuine guy. Just having the conversation with him in the moment, even over the internet, was enough for me to get a gauge on his how genuine he is, how he is genuinely in this to change the lives of many people, just to help, be a part of it. Like myself, just wanting to be a part of the growth and change for as many people as possible. We've come through this this period of time, or still going through, however you want to view it, which I think has been a very beneficial period in our history, and we all have the opportunity to grow. And there are so many tools out there. There are so many people out there, like myself, like Nickolas, who are just desperate to offer some kind of, I guess, companionship through mentoring. As you would have heard in the podcast, from the point of view of just offering a hand when a hand is needed. So check Nickolas out, purposepipe.com. His services are incredible. His offering is incredible. He's done some free videos. He's got a YouTube. I'm going to put links to everything, and I'll promote anything he does as it comes up, because he deserves. He just deserves to be able to support himself as he supports others. So yeah, thanks for listening to the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching, and hopefully there'll be some more coming out on YouTube. There certainly is coming for your ears. Plenty of candy. Peace and love. Ciao for now.